kind of ties us into our next bullet point here, which would be don't use too few of keywords either. Like, for example, just to over exaggerate, like using 2 keywords for whatever it is you're using. I don't know. I have used a couple campaigns where I use literally just a handful of keywords, but usually you want more than like 1 or 2 keywords. Can you think of any recent or specific examples, David, where it could be a bad idea to have literally like 1 or 2 keywords for a search or display campaign, as a search campaign primarily?
Yeah, we'll go to this it really does tie into the last point very well. Like just using pool only. Now it's fine if this is more of a higher level thing, but if you have a campaign and you have a bunch of different ad groups, it's fine to have 1 keyword per ad group if you're testing them against each other, but you don't really want to have only 1 keyword total, because one of the problems if you have just 1 or just 2 is you can't actually test. That's the first problem. You can't even find out what works. There's nothing to test against because you just have this little tiny sample size. And that leads right into, if you only have a small sample size of keywords to choose from, you also are going to have too small of a sample size of how many searches that you're showing up for. So that's the real problem. You can't find out how people actually behave because you only have 1 option.
Right. So would you say that, well, I know, but our audience doesn't know yet. Would you say that you cast kind of a wider net at first so you can narrow it and know what works so you can really focus in and kind of hone in your keywords? Or do you do something different?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. So I try to not fall prey to using too many. So we could go into how we exactly select them, but it's just a general rule. I really try to test a little, just where I know things need to be, and go a little wider than that so that we can have some success right away, but we're also, that net's a little bit wider and we can see which areas maybe we could move into and expand and which ones we just need to cut out. Because on that note of if you have too many, obviously your net's too wide, you can't figure out anything. But then if it's too few, you have no idea what you're missing, or if you're missing anything, you just have only this little tiny sample size. So I try to go somewhere in between those when I'm first starting out, and then narrow maybe an ad group down or that campaign, and then maybe start another one. So an example of not using too many or too few, I'm going to fuse these together real quick, is not putting the hot tub campaign and the pool campaign keywords in the same group. So a bunch of pool related ones together and a bunch of hot tub ones together to kind of test those out. But if it's a really targeted campaign, like we just know it's hot tubs, a lot of times I'll probably start with about 10 keywords. And I kind of follow Isaac Rudinsky's rule of thumb of $50 per, I think it's 10 keywords or so, between 5 and 10 keywords. $50 is how per day is what it takes to actually cover that many keywords. It's not always the same, but that's kind of a generality that seems to mostly bear out.
Yeah, it's a good template to at least get you started. So if you don't know anything, instead of just throwing up an arbitrary number, at least gives you something to work off of, and you can add or subtract from there. I definitely agree with that.